Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mastermind Academy. How's everyone doing tonight? Tonight we have we got another exciting topic. Last week we did Kubernetes. Tonight we're doing things in the CI/CD pipeline. Doing CI/CD. We'll go over what that second CD means. But first, how's everyone doing tonight? Let me know how you're doing. Let me know where you're tuning in from. We've had some people from some pretty exciting places tune in. I'd love to know where you guys are tuning in from tonight. Yeah, this is week for anyone new. I spoke to someone actually emailed me because they just found it. They were getting caught up on some videos. If you're on, welcome. If this is your first time on the stream, we are in week 11. Yeah, we're in the second to last week of this 12-week DevOps Bootcamp. So we have today and Wednesday, and then one more week after this, and then we'll be done with this bootcamp. This bootcamp will rerun right after the new year. This bootcamp's not going to run again until right after the new year, but there will be multiple streams. There'll be a lot of streams actually between now and the new year. But this will be kind of overhauled. I'll take in everyone's feedback. If you have any feedback for me, definitely reach out to me. I'd love some feedback. We're gonna hop in and we're gonna do it again. We're gonna run it a couple times next year, along with some other boot camps. One specifically about cloud computing, and one about software engineering and kind of getting up to speed with software engineering. So if you're interested in those things, stay tuned. I'm definitely gonna have some information about those coming in pretty soon. But yeah, let's actually see what we do have left. Let's hop into the curriculum. Let's see what we got going on. On week, I think I finally got my days right, so it should be on all the way down here. We finished container orchestration. Yeah, cool. So we're in this little part here. There's not a lot of words here. CI/CD, CD, very, very important, and that's a little preview. This is what it is: continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. People don't usually separate these two, but I think it's important to separate these two, especially when you're learning the concepts, so that we can understand why people should do them or should not do them. You shouldn't always do all these things, but just want to make sure everyone knows what they are and what the difference is. So tonight should be fun. We're going to be using CircleCI for this. I was going to try to use GitHub Actions. I did not get a chance to really dive into GitHub Actions. I did watch a small YouTube video on it yesterday, and it looked pretty simple. It looked very similar to Circle, so that might be something you can try out. I think you'll have once you understand kind of how this stuff works, should be fairly simple to kind of hop into that. Maybe we'll try to do that one day as well. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to kind of really flesh it out and really go through it. And I've used Circle a fair amount. We use it on our project. The only problem with build pipeline tools like this, unless you're using Jenkins or you're working at like a pretty big enterprise where things change often, you can kind of set these things up initially. You set up your pipelines. We have a lot of tools, a lot of microservices. Once you kind of get them set up, one, you basically you pull a lot of things from other Circle configs and from other build pipelines. And then you kind of set and forget them for the most part until there's a problem, honestly. So it's gonna be interesting running through this. We're gonna run through a full build pipeline tonight, and we should be able to get it up and running pretty quickly and pretty easily. But yeah, it'll be fun for sure. Yeah. Then what do we have left after that? After this, we have observability. Again, again, this stuff is very important, but I think this one will be relatively boring. I was trying to think of some cool ways to make this not so boring. It may be really fun to you. To me, it's a little bit boring of the observability stuff. The most boring of what we do, and that's why it's last, even though it's very important. Observability is one of the most important things about these DevOps pipelines and about DevOps as a whole. Knowing what you have and knowing knowing what's going on with it is very important. And then next week's going to be kind of all hands off with the technical stuff, and we'll hop into having some real world things, specifically about DevOps, but about the entire engineering experience, the entire engineering industry. We're going to do a panel. We're going to hear from a lot of different people. You'll have the ability. We will have guided questions to go through, but it will be open. Like those are kind of just extra in case people aren't asking a ton of questions, just so that we can stay on a specific track. But all the questions that are asked, we're going to get to as many of them as we can. So come prepared with your questions. There's going to be some software engineers here from large companies. There's going to be some DevOps people of varying experience levels as well. So I think there should be, if everyone shows up like they said they would, there should be between 6 and 10 engineers. So hopefully I'm going to do a sound check this weekend with the owl cam that we have. I think I'll be able to get the audio right, and the video should work pretty fine. So that should be good to go. And then we'll go over the interview process, get you ready to answer some of those questions, give you a little bit about what to expect, and we'll kind of run through that as well. And then we'll wrap it on up, and then we can start diving, we can do some shorter workshops diving deeper into a lot of the things that we did here during this boot camp. And that's what the goal is for the rest of the year, is to all these concepts that we've dived into, to put together some, longer format pieces specifically about kind of each of these sections, to dive into little labs, little things like that, to kind of dive deeper and get more into the specifics of what we did, since we covered most things at this very high level. So keep an eye out for that. I should have the schedule up for the rest of the year up on the site before this bootcamp is out. So by the end of next week. Well, yeah, tonight let's hop right into it. Let's hop into CI/CD/CD. So let's head over to Google. As usual, we got some slides tonight. And hop in a drive. Let's go ahead. Let's present this. And full screen it just so we can get the full experience. That didn't work. Let's see. Actually, let me turn on my, what's this called? My mouse integration. So my mouse won't leave this back. Let's go F11. There we go. All right. So CI/CD/CD, integrate, deliver, and deploy continuously. This is one of the most important things in the course. We haven't talked a ton in this course about how your job pertains, or how the job of a DevOps engineer pertains to, how it fits into the software development lifecycle. We talked about it a lot in the beginning, and we've tried to put in tidbits here and there. But this is probably the most prominent way you'll be dealing with the software that is built, and the way that you'll be lending your experiences and lending your expertise to the developers on your team. So common dev problems. This is very important. Why are we talking about CI/CD/CD? Like, what are they? Why do they exist? They exist because of these problems here. So what are some common developer problems? And so there's a scenario here. This happens often. I mean, this is a big thing. But Dave is on vacation. How do we do this again? And that's something that you run into at every organization. It's really hard. There's a lot of tribal knowledge in most places, and someone generally has the expertise and experience in a certain area, but we don't. The CI/CD process really helps this. It helps mitigate issues like this. You don't need someone sitting there, deploying your code, making sure your code is good. You've got these tools, you've got these pipelines in place that can allow you to do that. So one of those things is we forgot to run tests. That's a problem that you can run into. We'll learn here that even though the CI/CD process is a little more than that, it's become very testing focused. Testing kind of is at the heart of what CI/CD is, and so we actually did a little bit of testing in the very beginning when we were learning Golang, and we were hopping into exorcism.io. Those are test based kind of exercises there. That's test-driven development there. We're going to talk about running tests and how this process is used to ensure the quality of your application, to ensure there are no bugs automatically. Documentation gets stale, so that is a common dev problem, and that's why we kind of want to set up these pipelines, because you can write documentation to be able to tell devs and tell people, engineers on the team, how to do different things, how to deploy applications, what processes to run. But it's pretty hard to make sure those get up to date, when things change, and no one ever does a good job of keeping documentation up to date. So documentation gets stale, so it's a common dev problem. And then processes can be hard to understand. So when you put in, as you start to grow, as your company starts to grow, and you put in more and more development processes, they can be hard to understand. It can be hard to understand why you're doing certain things, when you should do certain things, how you should do certain things. And CI/CD comes in to save the day with all of these things, and helps to provide you a repeatable way to kind of set up these processes and run through them. So the first of all of the letters here, we have continuous integration. What is continuous integration? So continuous integration. This is, and I was going to give you the Wikipedia definition, but I don't want to give you the Wikipedia definition because I didn't think it was valuable. What I do think is valuable is how you think about continuous integration. And this is essentially, how do you know your stuff still works? How do you know your stuff still works? How do you know your stuff works with everyone else's stuff? So what continuous integration is, it's the process of taking your code and continuously, continuously integrating it. So combining it with the rest of the code base. So this is an interesting thing. We talked about Git, in the very beginning, but this is something that happens when you, especially when you're working. It's important when you're working with more than one developer, even if it's just yourself, but more than one developer is when this really shines. And you have your code base, you have your giant code base, and as you take a version of this and you go off to the right and you do work on this code base, you want to make sure this still works with the rest of the code base. So people are still pushing, if this is the main source of truth, people are still pushing code into here. They're finishing up work, they're pushing into here. And continuous integration allows you to make sure that your code still works with everyone else's code, all integrated together. But throughout this process, a few things happen, and these are some of the main things that happen. More things can happen, for sure, but it's more about the processes, and these are some of the common processes that take place during continuous integration. So automated testing. So your code will be tested for quality, tested for errors, tested for bugs, and this testing is not manual testing. This is all automated, and it's only going to test the things that you wrote. So the developers generally have to write tests to cover the code that they write, and this automated testing happens automatically during this time, or you can configure it to happen during this time. You can also do things like common vulnerability scanning to ensure that, hey, this code looks good that you were developing it. Now when you push it into the main code base, did you introduce any common vulnerabilities? And they can do things like that, and it can also handle sending these to a developer environment. And so developer environment is the keyword here to separate kind of the three. There is some overlap in the CI, CD, those pieces. So there is some overlap there, but make sure you remember that this is specifically to a development environment. And that's kind of what continuous integration is. And so we're going to dive deeper in that now. But again, it is continuously integrating your code automatically with the rest of the code base, and making sure that it's still working. So how do you know my stuff still works? And you'll see that in action with CircleCI. And I had a lot of trouble. People gave me the Wikipedia definition first, and I actually had a lot of trouble understanding that when I was first learning about the CI process and understanding what that was. I think part of that had to do with me not being a software engineer, and not understanding what do you mean, integrating your code with the the master branch or with the trunk of code. And I was like, I had a tough time with that. And I think the things I just gave you will make more sense once we hop into the manual processes here. So pipelines, what are pipelines? So people talk about these CI pipelines, these continuous integration pipelines. And what do these do? So these allow you, we talked about processes here. We talked about how the CI pipeline is just a set of processes that happen automatically. But it breaks down your processes into chunks. So if you have a lot of different things, CI tools, the concept of continuous integration, it breaks your process down into chunks. Bite-sized chunks that do certain things that you can kind of understand, and then it allows you to reuse those chunks of process. And so we talked about how process is complicated, can be hard to understand. It allows you to reuse those chunks so you don't have to worry about those again, and it changes how you think about your application as a whole and building your application as a whole. So what you're looking at is an image of a build pipeline, and it's a very simple build pipeline. And so just here on the left, something happens called build, and we learned a build step here would be like when we were compiling our Go code and we were building our little executable here and making sure that runs properly. And then the next thing it can do is it can test that and make sure everything's good with that, and it can test. You can have two different types of tests here that run in parallel. So whenever you see something like this, they're running at the same time, and that makes things go faster. I'll show you that in depth a little bit later. And then you can see here the next step in the pipeline is staging. So it goes to staging environment, so a place where you can test it. And then it looks like it hasn't gone here to production. Looks like there's a button to click deploy to production, but it moves through this pipeline. So each of these things right here is a gate, and each of these gates can stop your code. So it goes through this process first, this process has to successfully complete before it moves off. And so this is where it's breaking down these things into chunks. That build step, that's one piece of the process. And it's going to do that for you automatically. You define what it does. It does it for you automatically, and there's a gate here, and not until it's green and successful does it move on to the next process. And it doesn't move on to the next processes until that piece is complete, and then it runs through here, and both of these items down here have to complete successfully for it to move on. So this is a great way for you, one, to easily promote your code through environments, or to move your code into where it needs to be. And it's also a way to defend yourself against errors, against bugs. It's kind of your first line of defense, or well, really like your second or third line of defense, but it's a line of defense from, keeping those things from getting all the way to production, because we have all these steps and processes in place before we get out to our production environment. And you can have any number of these steps. This is, again, a very simplified pipeline, but just wanted to show you what something like that looked like. So what we talked about here, I really wanted to highlight this parallel build and test piece. So right here, this is just separate a line right here, and we have everything up here. And so this is a general pipeline. A pipeline, just kind of moves forward start to finish, and we can see where it starts. It runs a test, and let's say this test takes around 5 minutes. And when that's complete, it runs again. It runs along to test B because it's running multiple tests. And so test A versus test B will be just like these two, like test 1 and test 2. We have test A and test B, and moves on to test B. Let's say that takes around 5 minutes, and then we move on to test C once test B completes successfully, and that takes about 5 minutes. So it looks like an average pass, when it does pass, it takes about 15 minutes because we have 3 5-minute tasks here. And when it fails, though, let's say it takes around 7.5 minutes to fail, because it can fail at any point in this process. So the average fail time might be somewhere in the middle here, because it might fail at any part of this. And so once it fails, the build stops. And so if that's a gate there and it doesn't pass those tests, and it reports back to you saying, hey, we tested the code to the fashion that you gave us, and it did not pass, so we're going to stop building this so that you can go ahead and take a look at it, so that we don't introduce any errors to your environment. And that's great. So that's still a really good thing, but this takes a long time. That's a long time to wait for your code to get out there, because it has to pass all the tests before it can go anywhere. It actually takes a long time to find out how long to error. So it takes a long time to actually fail. But with these CI pipelines, you can do cool things like this over here. So ignore the cache dependencies piece. This has to do with, this is very, I guess, circle specific, maybe Travis as well. Basically container-based pipelines. You can kind of cache the things. We talked about Docker containers and how you can kind of cache layers. So you can kind of cache some things here and make sure you don't have to download anything new. But if you take a look at these 3 things here, they happen in parallel. So instead of the test happening sequentially right here, you can make them happen in parallel so that they all run at the same exact time. And what you can have here is, one, it passes in 3 minutes. So the test, only take 3 minutes to run. Even if it was 5 minutes, it won't take 5 minutes to run. But the average fail is only 1.5 minutes. So that feedback is very important. That feedback loop is very important. And you can see here, there's a 6-minute difference here. And so that's 6 minutes of you not having to wait, 6 minutes of pertinent information, faster to you, so that you can make unnecessary changes, which is very important and really good. And I think knowing that you have this ability to kind of run things in parallel like this is pretty important when you're talking about build pipelines, because that is a pretty cool feature. But yeah, so that's all continuous integration is. It's being able to make sure your stuff still works. So adding some automated testing, vulnerability scanning, etc. There's a number of things you can add in here to your continuous integration pipeline. But it's honestly like a fancy script, to be honest, that does a bunch of things. Test your code, make sure everything's good, does your building and things for you. It integrates your code with the main code base, so that you can be sure that it still works and you can be confident in its operational abilities. So from continuous integration, let's talk about continuous delivery, and we'll talk about what was missing out of that. So continuous delivery is not continuous delivery doesn't happen without continuous integration. So they are combined. Continuous integration, is that full scope of continuous integration is really inside of continuous delivery as well. But if the first one was, how do I know my code still works? Continuous delivery is, my code works, but like, how do people use my code? How do they get to use my actual code? And that's what continuous delivery is. And you can see the FedEx guy just kind of tossing something over the fence, but he's delivering that TV. It looks like it's a TV. He's delivering that TV. And so that's what continuous delivery is. It is continuously delivering functionality, continuously delivering code. And we'll talk about what delivering means. But how do people use my code? That's how you want to think about it. So the first thing, you kind of trigger a build. And so this is the continuous integration piece. The build triggers, these pipelines start. So the pipelines we were looking at, start up, you trigger this build, starts up, and then you rerun your tests. So you run those tests. You should have already run those tests locally to make sure everything's good. You push it up. You trigger this build, it runs those same tests as it integrates the code, make sure everything's good to go. And here's where continuous delivery, these, I guess, 3 steps are important. And some of this is a little bit exaggerated to really help you understand the difference. But the next thing is going to be build your application artifact. So what is an artifact? This is something that comes out of the build. This is, this can be a zip file, a Docker image or a container. So, when I take the code and I get it into a usable format, however this is supposed to be deployed, and I make sure that's done. So after my tests are good, you still have just code, and then I turn it into a format which I can, I turn it into an artifact which I can put somewhere, and then I put them somewhere. So it may just be something like this. It may be, hey, pull these HTML and CSS files. This is very basic, and zip those. Maybe I'll run some type of HTML test against it. There's some HTML parsers and testers. Run that against it. Then, once we know this is good, I want you to just zip them up into a zip file. So package them up into a single file, and then put them somewhere, and I might ship them off to a random computer, a random EC2 instance on AWS. But you just put them somewhere, or an S3 bucket is a common place to put them. But you just put them somewhere, and you walk away. So a lot of people are confused about this specific topic. So that's why I want to put in walk away here. You put them somewhere, like you get something that is usable, you deliver it, just like this FedEx guy. You deliver it and you walk away. Nothing else is needed. This is where the delivery actually stops. And this is where the fine line. This is why I put 2 CDs in here, because this actually satisfies continuous delivery. Get it into a place. So we talked about Docker the past few weeks. Your code, you write an application, it builds a Docker image, and then you put that Docker image in some type of Docker registry. So you send it up to Docker Hub, and then you're done. You've delivered that code, you've delivered that artifact, you delivered a working feature, basically. And that satisfies your continuous delivery. So you continuously integrate, so you integrate that code within your code base, and then you build it, you test it, you build it, and then you deliver an artifact. So that's continuous delivery. And then the last piece, so very separate from the 2, continuous deployment. And usually, again, people usually lump these 2 things together, but continuous deployment. And think about this as like, all right, the first one was, how do I know my code still works? And the second one is like, hey, how do people use my code? How does it get out there for people to use my code? And that's generally for your, it's generally like accessible for them, but not really like in their face to use it. And then the last one is continuous deployment. So how do I actually update the website? That's what the continuous deployment is. And this is an extra step in continuous delivery. So it's continuous delivery plus. So continuous delivery +1. It's just an extra step here. And this is for you to actually deploy those artifacts. So I said in delivery, we created some artifacts, and let's say we created a Docker image and we push it up to the Docker Hub. Now we want to deploy that. So if my application is running, based on this image, continuous deployment is the automatic deployment of that Docker file, of that Docker image. So if my app is currently running on version 1 and we get a new version up in the Docker Hub, automatically updating what is running to version 2 is the deployment piece of it. Again, it's actually deploying those artifacts, and it's automating the deployment process. So the key is all 3 of these things are automated. They're all 3 are automated, and that's the big key here. And then kind of how can you get started doing this? Stop being afraid to update code. Stop being afraid to fix bugs, and stop being afraid to try new things. Most people don't do continuous deployment. They might do it somewhere in their pipeline, but it is difficult to practice continuous deployment. Very difficult to practice continuous deployment, and we're going to talk about why. and you'll understand a little bit more why people usually combine those two things, again, because they kind of go hand in hand. But delivery and deployment are two completely different things, and it is important to know the difference between those things. And then, did you really need CD twice? No. So yes, I need a CD twice to explain it to you, but do you need CD twice? Does your organization need CD twice? You don't really need continuous deployment. I think generally you want to get to the point of continuous integration and continuous delivery. There are a lot of reasons why continuous deployment is not always right for your organization, not always right for you, but yeah, so it seems redundant to have it twice. Not really. Continuous delivery sounds scary. Build trust first, so build trust in your pipelines, build trust in your processes, and just keep improving, and you can get to the point where you're continuously deploying. Again, continuous delivery is important. Continuous deployment, not so much. Yeah, and we'll talk about, you'll see why that is shortly. So that's all I have for the slides, because I want to hop in and I want to show you some real world examples, and we're gonna set up a pipeline. I went and checked out. I was trying to find a good open source project for me to copy so that we could throw a circle config in there and get started. But I found one. I'm gonna actually use the Nodejs website. I didn't know their whole website's open source. We'll do some stuff with that. We'll play around and we'll get a whole build pipeline going here shortly. So if you have any questions about all the things that were said, I know I threw that at you pretty fast. You know, I taught you all about CI, CD, CD in 25 minutes, a little bit less. So if you have any questions, ask away. Let's get those answered first, and then we'll hop into the hands-on stuff. Hey, Newt Cax. Hey, it's hard for an individual to make a career change in the DevOps. Is it hard? Yes, it is hard. We just have a basic background. How long would it take? Where to start? So it looks like people started answering this, but I'll give you my 2 cents on this. Yes, I generally don't think DevOps is a career you hop straight into. I think you usually take on something else first, take on something like software engineering or web development, take on something like systems administration, database administration. And I think you spend some time there and you pick up skills. And I think you kind of move into DevOps. We talked about in the very beginning that DevOps it's really a discipline that's born from the experience of its practitioners. And that experience thing is key, and not so much experience as in years of service, but more so experience as just sheer things you've seen. I think that really helps you in the DevOps world. But yeah, I think it's something that you move into. I think you can do things that are very DevOps-esque. There are also tons of jobs right now that say they're DevOps, but are just a small sliver of DevOps that are relatively easy to hop into. But I would focus on something in particular. I'd focus on something very specific. Again, I'd start with something like Linux or cloud computing, or if your thing is programming, I'd focus on a language and getting up to speed with some of the latest frameworks. Learn JavaScript, learn React or Angular or something like that. But I focus on for the most part, one technology. Get really good at one technology or know it pretty well, or one like big concept that can solve a lot of problems. And then you can move on from there, and that's usually my advice when, especially people are asking how to get into DevOps. I think that's the best way to get in the tech industry. Period. To focus on kind of one thing at a time, spend some time, get to know that thing really well, so that you can be able to talk about it, so that you can really pitch yourself and impress somebody on it, and then then start applying for jobs. You can always pick up the stuff later, for sure, but that's where I think you should start. Start doing your free time as a hobby. Yeah, that helps. If you actually like this stuff. I know people who are getting into tech who don't really love tech, and that's fine. I mean, that's as good of a reason as any. You can spend your time doing something else that you hate for way less money. So I think, but if you love it, definitely take it on as a hobby. If you don't, take it on as a chore, I guess. So I would do it in your spare time. Just mess around. I think it's hard to know when you're first learning the value of just playing around, of just messing around, and like reading things, and like even if you don't understand, just reading things, and like I don't know, just getting your eyes on the stuff and start to familiarize yourself with the terminology, things like that. Like it's very powerful and it's very beneficial for you to be able to do that. So I absolutely think that's a good thing to do when you start out. Thanks, Shug. I appreciate it. Hopefully these are great resources. We'll be covering a lot of different things. And like I said, in the coming weeks, we'll be diving deeper into all the things that we're doing here tonight. So that might help as well. All right, cool. I think we got all the questions answered. So let me grab a sip of water. I got a new jar tonight. My wife actually went to a spring near here, a natural spring, and got this water. So, I'm giving it a go. It tastes clean. tastes nice. So this is my water for the week. All right, so Carter, we are not using Jenkins for a number of reasons. I will talk about Jenkins a lot. Actually, is that really the last slide? That should not be the last slide. You know what? I do want to show you all one more slide. There should be another slide here, but I'm going to pull up a slide really quick from something, from another slide deck that we did actually at work before, because I want to show you the major players. I could have sworn I put this in here, but I guess not. So give me 1 second. Let me get that pulled up. I'll have to change looking at. All right, this is the one that I wanted here. Oh. All right, let's make this, I don't know where, larger. And I close this. All right, desktop view. You can't see this that well. Actually, let me minimize that. You can't see this that well, but these are some of the major CI/CD players in the game. And so this actually, thank you for asking that about Jenkins, because this was the last slide I was going to add. But CircleCI, this is a major player. CircleCI, Jenkins, Bamboo, CodeShip, GitLab CI. There's some other options here. We'll talk about those in a second. But these are the major CI/CD players, Jenkins being by a substantial margin the largest, for sure. And these are some of the reasons why you would want to use them. Some of the pros and cons here. So CircleCI, simple pipelines, servers are managed for you. So it's a cloud-based product, even though I think you can have a local setup of it as well. You have isolated builds here. Quickly, so some of the cons here are the free tier. You can quickly exceed what you get for the free tier. So you know, they have a model which makes you put down money pretty quick. Useful features are behind the paywall. So like, there's a lot of great things that Circle has that you can only get if you do pay, and it works with GitHub only, so that can be problematic. There are other source code repositories that you may want to use, like GitLab, like not Bamboo. I forgot what the one for, maybe it is Bamboo. The one for Atlassian is. Completely forgot here. Oh, Bitbucket. There's some other ones, but it's GitHub only. So if you are not a GitHub user, can't use that, which kind of sucks. Jenkins. So Jenkins, again, like I said, by far the biggest one. You should learn Jenkins. If you learn Jenkins, this is going to be in a vast majority of job descriptions that you look at, knowing Jenkins. But Jenkins is cumbersome. Actually, and it says that, but it's free to use. So Jenkins is open source. It's free to use, and it runs on servers that you have. So they do have a cloud offering now, but basically most Jenkins setups you're going to see are Jenkins setups that they have servers that are running, that Jenkins is installed on, that someone at the company has to manage, usually you as the DevOps engineer. You got to manage these servers, and you know, it's installed on there, and that handles your builds. So it's expensive to maintain, and not just costs, not just money costs, but time. Everywhere I've worked that had Jenkins servers, we spent a lot of time, you know, updating them, maintaining them. Yeah, very expensive to maintain in that sense. A cumbersome pipeline format. So until you know otherwise, it doesn't seem that cumbersome. And then once you see the way other products do it, it's a very cumbersome setup process, and the pipeline itself is very cumbersome. And there's plugin security concerns. So they have a great plugin ecosystem, but the problem is there's so many of them, and it's such a big product that there's some security concerns that are introduced with the plugins that you use. Bamboo, this is one of the Atlassian products. So if you ever use something like Jira or Confluence, this is the same company here, and It runs on servers that you have as well, so you can get it installed there. They also have cloud offerings as well. They all have cloud offerings now. But yeah, it runs on servers you have most places you go to. Right now, at least, it'll be running on a server. And then it has great Atlassian integration. So if you're using things like Bitbucket, if you're using things like Jira, if you're using things like Confluence, it has great integration with all those products. Maybe they don't have a cloud offering. This is kind of old. We made this like last year. We did a presentation for Baltimore City, and they didn't have a cloud offering at the time, but I think they do now. I'm pretty sure that they do now. Pricing ramps up very quickly, as it does with all of Atlassian's products. CodeShip's a cool tool, and I wouldn't really worry about CodeShip too much, but it's cloud managed. It has Bitbucket support, so if you're using, again, that Atlassian suite, it's got Bitbucket support. And you can't use containers to do any builds. So we talked about containers. Can't use containers to build anything without the Pro license, and it's more expensive than Circle, and Circle can get kind of expensive as well. I think you have GitLab CI. So GitLab's great. So everyone learned about GitLab. Everyone learned about GitLab when Microsoft bought GitHub, and everyone was up in arms saying Microsoft's going to ruin this product. We got to get our code off of here because Microsoft is big brother and we don't like them. Blah blah blah. A lot of people went to GitLab, and GitLab is a end-to-end DevOps tool, and I really like the product. And so before most people know it as a GitHub competitor, as a source code repository, but it's much more than that. It's got its own, again, pipelines built in. It's got its own DevOps toolkit built inside of it. So it's free to use. The pipeline is pretty simple. And it's self-hosted or managed. So you can self-host it, you can install it on servers, you can run your own clusters of it, or you can just use GitHub's managed things. But again, just like Circle, this is GitLab only. So you can only use GitLab to use GitLab's CI tools, and care and feeding if you're self-hosted. This is the same thing that kind of happens with Jenkins. It gets a little cumbersome and expensive to maintain or manage. I think it was very important for you guys to see some of the main players. There are also, I think someone said it, Team City is definitely one. Travis CI is one. Travis CI is one a lot of open source projects use. And actually, let's switch back to main. And let's check out some of these websites. So Jenkins and Travis, and just take a look at some of the sites really quick. Travis, and what do we say? We said Team City, and they all do the same thing. They just all have different ethoses, and they all have different ways of implementing those things. But there are a bunch, and we're gonna get to Circle. But like I said, Jenkins is one of the biggest ones. It's got this. Everyone starts to know this little guy. Everyone's got a Jenkins sticker somewhere, even if they don't put it on their laptop. Everyone's got one. But again, Jenkins, like, once you're done with this, if you are diving into CI/CD, take what we do here. Understand the concepts of what we do here, but I do recommend going out and watching some Jenkins videos and learning how to approach Jenkins, because it is a lot different from what we're going to do tonight. But it's so well known, it's so well used. So I think it's very important to know Jenkins. Travis is pretty good. Like I said, a lot of open source. Yeah, the home of open source testing. You'll see like open source projects. You'll hop into GitHub and you'll be able to see the Travis builds, and it's a pretty cool product. We used it actually at our job for a while. So Travis is pretty cool, and Travis is very similar to Circle actually. Yeah, I don't know what the pricing differences are, but Travis is pretty cool. Team City, pretty cool as well. I used Team City when I was actually used to work at ZeniMax Media. They're the people who make, they're kind of the parent company. ZeniMax is the parent company of Bethesda games. So I actually worked on the Elder Scrolls Online, and we had some Team City build servers there. And so we used those there. So Team City is pretty cool. You will run into all of these things in a professional setting. Different companies use different products. And what do we say? Bamboo. We got Bamboo again. This is an Atlassian product, so it looks like all the other Atlassian products. But this is great because you can do all kinds of things, like it can post things inside of Jira tickets when there are errors and all kinds of stuff. It can do some pretty cool things. So it's a solid product for sure. Yeah, Bamboo's cool. And the one that we are going to use tonight is CircleCI. And why are we going to use CircleCI? So we're using Circle for a number of reasons. I think Circle's one of the products that you're going to come across the most as you kind of dive more into the tech industry. They're a relative newcomer to the CI game, but they've grown pretty quickly, and they support a lot of conferences. They support a lot of things. They have there's some great developer advocates who go around, but Circle, so you'll see it a lot. So I think you see me wear CircleCI shirts a few times, but the biggest reason is the simplicity. It's a lot easier to hop in what we're going to do tonight than it would be if we were going to do it with Jenkins. I just don't think we would have enough time, to be honest, to set up a reasonable Jenkins pipeline. This is a lot better. This paradigm is something that I think people are switching to, and is a pretty good way to do this stuff. And again, for these purposes, it is free. You alone messing around with it won't drive yourself above the free tier, but as an organization, you can get past the free tier pretty quickly. But yeah, and I just think the popularity. I just think the popularity of CircleCI has grown substantially in the past few years, and I think it is the next big product after Jenkins that's becoming more desirable. Again, a lot of larger companies are still using things like TeamCity and Jenkins, and they'll be using multiple CI tools. But I think Circle's a good one for us to get started with tonight. So you can hop on Circle if you want and make an account. We've been using GitHub, so I think that's another reason why it's good. You can use your GitHub to make an account, and we'll do that in a second. I'll give people a chance to make an account if you want to. You don't have to follow this along, but yeah, we'll check this out. But while let's see, you guys have been saying a lot here. TeamCity, yeah. Move to GitLab. Microsoft bought GitHub. Yeah, I mean, I like GitLab, but I don't know. I love what Microsoft has been doing in the past few years, especially in terms of open source. So I gave them a chance. I did stop paying for. I mean, they made unlimited private repos for free. So I did stop paying. I was using a GitHub Pro account, but I no longer pay for that because Microsoft made it better for me. You can pull in GitHub now and use GitLab CI. Oh, that's cool. We can check that out. That's pretty cool if you can now use GitLab CI. That makes sense. I do think that's something they should do. And now it's a little more feasible. Like I think it's a little more feasible for me to use it now if I can pull in my GitHub code. Balance. There's also Azure pipelines. Let's check out Azure pipelines. So we've been talking about AWS pretty heavily here, but I am not beholden to them at all. Microsoft Azure, looks like they have some pipelines as well. CI tool, and we didn't even talk about AWS's CI tool. We didn't talk about code build or code star per se, but look, yeah, it looks like Azure. If you're someone who's working in the Azure ecosystem, you can use this. Even if you're not, I'm sure you can still use this in some way. So it looks like Azure pipelines is cool. That's cool. I'm actually going to start diving into Azure very soon. I actually might, not in the next iteration of this, but maybe in the third iteration, I might actually switch it up to use Azure. And I might cycle them out. I might use Google Cloud for one, Azure for one, AWS for one, so people can get a good understanding. I'll do the same thing with the cloud computing section. One will be, or like the cloud computing bootcamp itself. There'll be one for each of the major cloud providers. That's cool. So, actually, before we hop into this, actually, no, let's log in. I think I'm already logged in. And let's go to the app. I probably have some failed builds in here. Lots of failed builds. Ignore all that. Cool. What we're gonna do is we're gonna look at some code really quick. We're gonna look at some code that I have. I actually don't think the build is working right now. I don't think it's been working for a while, but that's because I was just messing around with it. Let's look at some code here. So Circle is great because Circle is a CI tool that all you have to do to set up a build pipeline is to throw in some code into your repo. So right here, I actually have, this is actually the code for the mastermind for the Academy website. It's statically generated. It's a Hugo application. It's a Hugo website. So this Hugo statically generates this. I'm going to use these files to statically generate the content. And then we have this config in here. So all we have in our whole, so all of everything down here is the code for the site. And then all we had to do to enable Circle was basically go into Circle, click through, sign up with Circle, go through and click and set up a new project. Just tell it what kind of project it is, and it gives you some base YAML. And so remember, I told you YAML's cool. We've been using YAML for everything that we've been doing lately. That is the same thing that they use. They use YAML. It gives you some basic YAML to get started with, and then we can build off of that. So again, this looks like the Ansible playbooks you saw. This looks like the Terraform stuff you looked at. This looks like the Docker compose files you looked at. This looks like a lot of those things. So this format isn't too crazy to you, and you can see how it gets easier and easier to use these things, as you get more and more comfortable with building out things in YAML. But let's take a look at this. So this is, actually I'm going to delete all this extra to clean it up a little bit. But this is I didn't build almost any of this. I Googled most of this at the time just because I wanted to see the best way people were building Hugo. This is my first Hugo site, even though I've built out these for Golang before. But take a look at kind of let's break down this just a little bit before we hop into what everything is and dive deeper into Circle. I just kind of wanted to really quickly show you a high level overview of what you were going to be looking at. And so we can see here jobs. So basically, oh man, it's always, my phone's always listening to me and going off. But we talked about how, the CI tool is used to set up these processes. And so these processes here are called jobs. And so you can set up these jobs, and you can break it up into the build job. And you say, hey, it looks like I actually only have one job here, because remember in YAML, the structure matters. So everything under jobs, there's nothing else listed under the same level here, but I could have multiple things here, but it looks like I have one job, and that's to build. And so I'm letting it know here that it's a Docker build, and these are all things that you have to look through their documentation to learn. But it'll give you, again, like I said, it'll give you a lot of this stuff by default, and you're gonna see that because we're gonna do a fresh pipeline in a second. But we give it an image. So we say, hey, I just want you to build the base of what we're going to be using is this image here. And so this is something that they gave me, which is a Hugo latest. So there's the repository called CI builds that Circle has for you that you can get some custom built images from. And then you give it things like a working directory. Working directory is where you want to start from. And that it's actually going to run commands in. So the Hugo directory, and then an environment. This is an environment variables. So we learned about environment variables. And so we're setting a variable in environment called Hugo build directory, and we're setting it to this. And then this job has some steps. And what are these steps? These steps are like basic Linux commands. Honestly, they're going to run. And look at this. This is just the same thing you've seen before. I want to update, so apt-get update and an apt-get install git. So I want to make sure git is installed. You can see here I have some annotations in here to let you know what's happening. And then I want to checkout. So checkout is actually a special step that's used in here, but it's going to check out the code that I set up. It knows which code it is because one, it's in this directory, but this is a special command in inside of CircleCI, and it's going to check out this repository. So it's going to run this stuff first, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to download my code, the code that's from my application. It's going to check that code out of GitHub and download it. Then it's going to just run some git commands, and then I'm going to install some things that I need. So what this build pipeline does, this is a Hugo app. To use a Hugo app, you have to basically take your code, take these markdown files that you wrote. So you write a markdown file that looks like this. You modify it, and we're actually gonna, you see I have a typo here. You basically fix this, you build it, and so you just type in Hugo, and I don't have Hugo installed on this computer, but basically to build it, you just run a Hugo command, and it basically runs through and takes all these markdown files and turns them all into HTML. So that's the build step here. And then it puts it into this folder called public. But this is not important. This has nothing to do with CI, but I want you to know all the steps that need to happen for the code to get deployed. So the code needs to be checked out. It needs to be built. and it needs to be, and then this actually pushes it to AWS. So this site is actually served out of an S3 bucket. And so it does all that, and then it pushes it to an S3 bucket. So to be able to do that, I've got to install some tools to interact with AWS. So right here, all we're doing is installing the AWS command line, CLI, command line interface, so that we can interact with Amazon. And then it's going to run a Hugo build command. And so this is just Hugo stuff, and it's going to deploy it. So once it's done, so after all these steps go through, it's going to run through, and it's going to go ahead and push to the bucket that I want it to push to. Again, don't sweat it if you don't understand that. Just know that this is just a bunch of steps. We're running a bunch of Linux commands here. I mean, it's like a script. It's like a fancy script, and you got to learn how to write it in the way that your build tool wants you to write it. But that's all that does here. And I want you to see, before we hop into it, kind of what the structure of this looks like. Now, it could get pretty long if you want a lot of different things to happen, but all this is doing right now is just saying, hey, take what you have. Let's download your code. I actually do think it's running some kind of check in here, and then it's building my website for me, and it's pushing my website automatically to my bucket. So what steps is of CI/CD/CD? What steps is this circle command or this circle config? What is it doing? So one, we are continuously integrating. So one thing I forgot to tell you is that this happens because of the way this circle config is set up, and we'll set up a different circle config in a second. But this happens every time I push code up to GitHub. So you can, I made a change to this file. I fixed the R. If I, I'll just show you. So we're gonna run the git status, see what's going on, and I'm gonna add a message, and I'm gonna say fixed misspelled word. Oops. I forgot. Git commit. And then I'm gonna push. And I really need to set up this computer how I like to have it set up. So I pushed this code up to GitHub. I actually didn't even save that file, so it may not even work. But let's see if this happens. So I pushed it up to GitHub, and that config allows Circle to watch. And so basically what happened is when that got up to GitHub, so it went up to, let's log into GitHub. That went up to here, and you can see here, I just pushed a change, fixed misspelled word, and as soon as it gets that, as soon as Circle sees that you push new code, this is the integration step. There's new code here. Let's make sure everything's good to go. It automatically grabs it, and it goes ahead and it starts running through the process that I assigned to it. You can see here now, it's kind of just installing the AWS CLI, just like what I have in that file. And this is gonna fail because I actually don't have any AWS credentials in here. But you can see here, it's going through and it's running the build. This is the pipeline. This is the workflow. Let's actually see if I can see any workflows. And you can see here, I only have one piece of the workflow. I only have a build step, but I could have multiple steps, and you're gonna see that shortly as well. Right now, I only have a build step for this one. It's gonna fail again because I actually don't have my credentials in here, but no big deal. You can see it failed, and it's gonna let me know it failed. It sent me an email, it says, hey, this build has failed, and you need to go address it. And so there's a good way to keep an eye, this is a good way to put some processes in place to keep an eye on what's going on. You can see here, even in that one build job, those steps, I have a lot of different things in here, and I can see what's happening each step of the way. All right, so let's go ahead and create our own pipeline. Actually, does anyone have any questions first about what you've seen? And again, I kind of jumped ahead so that we can go back and kind of build this out ourselves. But does anyone have any questions about what you just saw? Pipelines, not Jenkins, I beg you. Yep, definitely not Jenkins. Oh yeah. So it's called the I forgot why I call it the gospel. I think one day I was trying to because I know I told you guys about this app that I'm building as a part of this to be able to build some stuff out. That piece is called Cerebro, and it's kind of built off of some of this stuff, but it is separate from this. And one day, like I was like trying to rename all of my repos so that I knew what they were, and I think I was like watching TV and like gospel came on, so I called it the gospel or something, like kind of as a joke, but then I just kept it there because I knew what it was. And it's this repo is actually private. Doesn't really need to be, but it is private. But yeah, that's just what it's called for now. I don't remember the exact reason why I called it the gospel, but I will open up Cerebro to you guys pretty shortly. I just need to. I'm getting more and more time to do that. I'm focusing a little more and more on it, but that's gonna come. That's gonna come out pretty shortly. I'm actually pretty excited about what it's becoming. Let me explain. That was way better than anything I've read. That makes me feel good. I'm glad that explanation was able to the explanation was able to help you out there. I hope it helps someone else out as well. Instead of Hugo M, e-production or environment production. Yeah, I actually don't know much about Hugo at all. I wanted to use Hugo just because I'm comfortable writing Markdown, and I don't really want to build. So I know how to build websites. I despise building websites. So I use tools to do that for me. So I'll check out. One day I'll learn a little bit more about Hugo, and I need to because of what Cerebro is, and that's going to be Hugo based. For now that'll become much bigger, but it's Hugo based for now. But I've built some extra tools under there. So yeah, if anyone knows any great Hugo things, definitely let me know about those things. Does apt-get install Python install 2.7 in your distro? Yes. So it does. And as from that question, I assume that means Python 2.7 is going to be end of life very shortly. Very shortly. Actually, yes, it does still install Python 2.7. I believe. So what's very interesting is this. The first time I went through this, I actually had to fix it because it was outdated, and this Hugo container used to be built on top of Alpine Linux. So I was actually using a different package manager called APK. And I had to change it to use apt, and I had to change a lot actually with all the things it was installing. But yes, it does install Python 2.7 and not Python 3 for now. I'm sure that will change. I don't know when, but that will change sometime. We're like Hugo and stupid fast. Yeah, I genuinely like Hugo. My only problem is the content. It's very easy to build the content. But to style and theme it, I despise. The reason I don't like building websites is purely because I hate writing CSS. And that's how you style. That's how you style it all. So I don't know. If anyone wants to have some ideas about stuff, anyone likes styling, wants a project to work on, some throwing your resume, I might have you help me build out some. I want to modify this theme that I found for Hugo because I think it will be really good for some of the stuff that I'm trying to do on here. But yeah, let me know. But Hugo's pretty dope if you want to check it out. Another static site generator. I was going to do this pipeline with a static site generator. That's how I did it originally. Basically, use Jekyll or Hugo to basically build a site and throw it into S3 bucket. We're going to do something a little bit bigger tonight, and I hope it works. I didn't run through this at all. Just kind of an idea. And let's go ahead and let's start building that out now. So what we're going to start with is, let me Google it. Let me find it. I don't know why I went to Google. Probably should have stayed on GitHub. But let's say Node.js website, GitHub. All right, so the Node.js website is open source. So if you go to nodejs.org, you get this site here. And, they changed it. And they changed it just since yesterday. But this is the Node.js website. So if you're interested in learning Node, but it's bigger, this is their website here. And it looks like they've made the whole thing open source. And so it sits out right here. And it is built, obviously it's built on Node.js. So let's take this as our own site. So let's take it, and this is how you would do something like this. You would read through the README if you didn't know what to do. It lets us know that we can clone it, change it to the folder, and we can npm install. So npm is node package manager, and install all the necessary dependencies we need. Remember, dependencies, we talked about dependencies. What solves that? Right, containers. So we can containerize this if we want, and then npm start. So maybe we will do that in a second. But let's go ahead and see if we can get this running locally first before we do anything else. And so let's say here, you know what? let's do this on Amazon. Let's do this on Amazon. I think this will be fun, I hope. Whenever you, I forgot what that law is, but whenever you do it, whenever you're doing it live and whenever people are watching, it never happens right, but we'll get it working. We'll definitely get it working. We'll definitely get up a pipeline at least. So we're going to set up, again, Ubuntu, just because you all are used to seeing the commands in Ubuntu. I'm going to set up a micro, default, let's see, IAM role, that's storage. I'm basically just spinning up a server to run this on. So you guys should actually be able to access this as well. Same time I'm accessing it if you'd like on your own machines. Next, add tags, add a tag, name, circle test. Security group, I want to make sure everyone can access over port. Custom TCP rule. I don't feel like setting up Nginx, so I'm going to allow you guys to access over port 3000 because that is, I think that's what it runs on. Let's see, does it say? Oh, looks like it's going to run on 8080 by default. So let's open up port 8080. 3-1 launch this. I'm going to hope that I have that key locally. Do I have that key locally? Let's make sure. Move this down, CD documents. And where I do not have that, maybe it's in, I do have academy.pim. What about in my home directory, CD documents? Would I put it somewhere else? All right, academy.pim looks like it's one that I have, or I can generate a new one. I'm gonna generate a new one, I guess. Oh wait, it's in downloads. I think it's in downloads. LL downloads. Yeah, all right, the PIM file's here. I should move it, but I'm not going to because it's fun looking for it when I need it. So I'm gonna launch this instance. And this is gonna spin up an EC2 instance for me. It should be accessible to you all. Let's get logged into it. And again, this is fun because now we're combining some of the stuff that we've learned. You can see how easy the cloud is. So pending, but let's put together our SSH command so that we can get in. So we've got to tell it which key to use, and we just found out where that was. So downloads 09/16/2019.pim. And then the user for Ubuntu servers is Ubuntu @ and then the address that we need. So let's go ahead and let that get up to speed. And it's running now, very fast. Cloud's very cool. We're trying to get in. There we go. So just like that, we're logged into our EC2 instance. We're in a server. We are no longer on our host machine. And you can see the difference here in this tab. This is my prompt for my host machine. Abrix at Mastermind. So if you see the prompt being different, now we're at Ubuntu at this IP address. That is the IP, internal IP for the server that we're on. So, or no, not, is that the, no, that's the external IP. Let's find out. That's the private, yes, the private IP for the server that we're on. So really quick, I'm just gonna do a quick update because it is a good idea to do this to make sure we have all our packages available to us. Then we're gonna take the code, the Node.js code, and we're going to install that on our server really quick. So we're just going to follow their instructions. And this is what the README is for. If you're ever confused about what this README file is, all caps readme.md, that's a markdown file. It's a way to, format text to be able to display it in the way that you want to display it. And it's used to be able to usually write some documentation for this stuff. So we're going to clone this first. I'm just going to clone it from here. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why it said that. But I'm gonna clone it. Actually, let's do this. Let's make a directory and call this npm website. Let's put it in here. Git clone. So cloning a repository will download all the files. Oh man, so I gotta go all the way in here. And if we do an ls, all the files that are here are actually the exact same files that you will see right here. Exact same directory tree, same file. So it just cloned everything that is in that repository. Then what do they want us to do? They want us to cd into nodejs.org. I just did that. And they want me to npm install. So I don't actually think I have node or npm here. So let's do sudo apt-get install node to node.js. This looks good. We're gonna go ahead and install Node.js really quick. And then we're gonna install npm, which is Node Package Manager. So you can think of Node Package Manager just like apt-get or yum to be able to easily install packages inside of your Node.js code base. Again, not super important if you don't care about JavaScript or Node, but we're very quickly going to get that installed. npm takes a little bit of time to install, but not too long. That should be pretty fast. Amazon's internet is pretty fast. Yarn, yes, I do like Yarn as well. I actually really don't like npm. It's just what everyone uses. But yeah, I haven't got used to sudo instead of sudo. I agree with you. I don't even know which one I really believe in anymore, because I think originally I said sudo. And then I heard someone say sudo, and I said that was stupid. And then I think someone really important said sudo on stage at a conference that I was at. I was like, oh, well, like that's got to be right, because that guy has like lots of years of experience, and I should just do what he did. And I started trying to say it one way, and then I started saying it both ways at the same time because I wasn't sure. And now I think I mostly say sudo. I'm pretty sure I mostly say that now. I don't know. I don't know which one's right. If someone knows for sure which one's right, let me know. I will do my best to correct myself, but I probably will get it wrong every single time. All right. If you're using Ubuntu, the node, yeah, that's fine. I hope. Actually, let me see. Is there an NVMRC here? I think we're fine. Yeah, I think we're fine for that. npm. So npm install is going to go through. So this is just a little, I'm giving you some extra tidbits about Node.js itself, but there's this package.json. Whoa. And there's just a bunch of stuff in here, and all of these right here are just packages, node packages here. And an npm install is going to go through and install those things for us. I hope I don't get some weird, sometimes npm gives some weird permissions errors on Ubuntu specifically when I try to run the stuff, but I'll let it run. It'll go through, it'll install all the stuff for us. Also, what's good about this is this will not affect anything if we, I don't think we'll have to upload or anything, but working off of a server will make sure that it doesn't crash the stream if I have to upload, since Comcast is all you can get here in Baltimore City. I'm out of Baltimore City for those of you who are new to the channel, but Comcast gives you amazing download speeds. I've actually just upped my download speeds from I think 400 megs down to 600 megs down. That's great. All that's great. But the upload speeds are still like 12 megs up, which sucks. Completely sucks. Yeah. Do I have a computer science degree? No, I do not have a computer science degree. I went to school for information systems. Computer science was too hard for me, and realistically, information systems was also too hard for me at the time. I think mentally, I just wasn't into it. I learned most of what I know, I learned on my own. I definitely learned something in school. I don't want to say I didn't learn anything in school. Most of what I learned, most of what I learned in school, I had to relearn out of school to know that I learned it in school, which is very interesting. But yeah, almost everything I know, I've learned on the job, and kind of on my own, just spending some time to kind of pick up these things. But you pick up a lot. Well, once you can get a job, that's all I always tell people, like, fight hard to get the first job. And everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna have to do so much after that. Yeah, you have to learn, but like, you'll get so much on the job that like, you won't have to spend too much time outside of that at all. So cool. So now npm install's done. It downloaded all that stuff that we needed. So it downloaded all the dependencies that we need. So what would be a good tool for this? If we Dockerize it, and we can try to Dockerize it if we have some time at the end here. But yeah, so we have all the things that we need. Let's take a look back at what they want us to do. The last thing is npm start. So we'll hit an npm start here. and this will spin up. And that didn't work. Message file or directory. I think I know what that is. I think this is a SAS problem, actually. I'll check that out in a second. Someone said something about it's super user do. So it is sudo. Excellent. Thank you. That makes sense to me, so I'll keep saying sudo until someone gives me a different answer that makes sense as well, and I'll switch to that. But sudo right now makes sense to me. That makes sense. All right, so we have an error here. Let's see what happened. Locals 8080. No such file directory. Make their npm website. This is a I think this is one of those stupid permissions problems that I was talking about. But we'll see here. All right, this is a node problem. I didn't expect this. Let's troubleshoot it. Copy and paste this just because I don't know a ton about Node at all. Let's see if we can copy this. Let's read it actually before I just start willy-nilly googling stuff. Maybe X status 1 cross environment node development node server failed a node script cross environment. Make sure you have the latest version of man. Maybe that is the problem. I really don't want to install 8.10. That probably is the issue. All right, new npm. So let's get a newer version of npm installed. This is annoying. See, this is what happens when you do it live, but no problem at all. Let's grab. I don't want this. Actually, I think I can do it with npm. Actually, npm install latest node version. This is why I don't like. This is how I don't understand all you all all you programmers out there. You guys have all these little tools. I guess everything's like that, but you guys have all these little tools to do all this stuff, and you gotta learn every time you go to a new language. You gotta learn a bunch of stuff. But let's see. You should need to run npm as root. Hold on, I can help you here. You can update npm with npm. Yeah. But can I also? I think I can also install a new version of Node via npm. Let's see. Let's look at the npm install. Whoa, no. Dash help, not helpo. That's wrong. All right. I think you can give it a version. Let's see. Oh. Oh, npm update. That sounds great. Will this just upgrade npm, or will this upgrade Node as well? So it looks like I should have checked. Let's see. Actually, oh, nvm is what I can use. So hold on. Sudo. How do I think I can install. I think I can use nvm to upgrade. I believe that would nvm install. Oh, I like that. npm install -g. Let's try that. All you web developers out there with all the complicated stuff and all the, I can't tell you how many times I've got all my stuff out of whack, and I think this is the stupid permission to deny problem. That was really annoying. So let's fix this problem. There's a way to fix this that's pretty easy. I hate this. I have seen this before though. Let's copy it. I think there's two things you can do to it. I could run sudo, but I don't want to run sudo because it does some weird stuff. I think I have to move my my libs to somewhere else. Okay, let me grab that really quick. Add a file. Nice. I didn't know you could do npm-rc. This is you guys are spitting out all the knowledge here. So basically, we're running through a troubleshooting session. Basically, so if you don't know what we're doing, no big deal. just try to follow along. We're just trying to quickly solve the problems that we're running into. Prefix packages, then make a directory, npm packages. It must have gave you a tilde. Does the I need to make a hidden npm packages folder in the same folder that this prefix. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. Gotcha. Now I see what's happening. Thank you. Should have just looked at it first before asking questions. And then, all right. And so now I think you're saying I can do something like this. That'd be great if you. I've never fixed it that way before. It always gave me something else to do. All right, didn't like that. And let's take I call it the right thing. Oh no, I did not. What file did I edit? Oh, that's why I didn't put this here. So npm. All right, that should do it. I'm assuming the npm RC should be here since I'm running it from here. I assume that's a problem. Maybe not. So you said remove the quotes from in the npm RC. That makes sense too. See, and this is the, and to be 100% honest with you guys, this is the point that you should eventually be trying to get to. Like, again, I'm not a Node expert, even though my project at work is in Node. But you should, and so it looks like that worked perfect. But you should be able to approach these problems and run into an error. And luckily I have people here helping me out. But I know, I understand what's happening when people are giving me these things. Like, I didn't know you can have an npm RC file, but this follows some same paradigms as your bash RC. And these are configuration files that you can use to kind of change settings and things like that. So as we're running through this, like, I know what's going on. And you pick up these things over time. And like all the work that you do, you pick these things up, and it makes it easier to troubleshoot problems like this when you run into them. I think even if this was a programming language I've never used before, like Kotlin or something, like, I think I would be able to at least continue to make progress. Be Googling and using the tools that I have available to me. I think I would be able to continue to make progress until I could get it to work. So thank you very much for your help. So I think I probably still need to upgrade Node, but because we updated npm, I'm gonna run another npm install really quick and see if it changes anything, and then I'm gonna try to spin it up. And if not, I'm gonna install nvm, because I do know that nvm will allow me to install a later version of Node without me doing it manually. And all right, so let's install nvm really quick. I think nvm is just a quick script that I can use. Remember to update path. Do I need to update path? The npm install works, so like npm works. So I don't think I need to update my path. But I can update path. I just don't think it works. So I can do sudo. If I do sudo, it'll cause some problems. But you know what? Actually, it might not cause any problems on the start. I think it caused problems on the install. But I actually don't think this is I don't think this is this is no longer a permissions problem. I think this is now a version of Node problem. So 8.10 is actually going end of life. It's actually pretty old. It's going end of life in December, I think. I only know that because AWS just sent out an email today for anyone who's running any kind of Node serverless functions. They're stopping support for Node 8 later. And so these are the things that you find out, you know, as a DevOps person, as someone who manages the infrastructure. These are things that you find out. Your npm and Node versions are still showing old in the error message. I think you need to update the path to get the new version. And so I do need to do that, but okay. And not pwd nvm rc. So one question is, I'll update my path really quick, but the npm, that npm RC needs to be, I'm assuming needs to be wherever I'm running it, unless, oh, are you saying put the npm RC in somewhere that has, okay, that's interesting. I gotcha. All making sense to me now when I sit down and I take a step back and think about it. Now, so that one's updated here. And that's in my path, so it's not pulling from there, is it? Because this is in my home. This is in my home. So that should be just for fun. The prefix needs to be in your path. I thought you copied from the directory for no bags worth. Yeah, I can do. I'll run this, but I don't think maybe it will. I'm just trying to, at the same time you're giving me this stuff, which probably works because you know what you're doing. I don't know. I just wanted to see. I'm like thinking through it at the same time. So this worked the first time though. So I'm very interested in. And it's okay. That looks different. And npm did upgrade, so good. Thank you. That looks cool. So let me just run another npm install because it looks like that helped. I'd be very interested in taking a step back later and figuring out why. Nope, that makes perfect sense to me. That actually does make perfect. Thank you. But I don't know if this is going to work though. But let's see. Yeah, and I think this still has to do with either permissions problem, but I actually think this has to do with the version of Node itself. I think this is the version of Node that's the problem. But I think we're good on npm though, and we can confirm that. Oh, it's not even spitting out anymore what the version is it? Probably should also harness node modules to get super fresh. All right, cool. I can do that. So all the node modules that we installed with that npm install, all get installed to this node modules directory. I'll remove that so it's fresh. I still think I need to upgrade Node, but we're gonna find out. And while that's installing, let's grab install an update script. It's pretty quick to install nvm. Copy, and let's find nvm install latest. I hate when the title is something simple, and then you have way too much in your. I want the answer to be right at the top because I don't want to parse through. I don't want my eyes to have to parse through everything you did because I don't read this stuff. You don't do what I do. You should definitely read this stuff, but my eyes kind of know what I'm looking for here, and I go and find exactly what I'm looking for. I can just install a newer version. That works. All right, so before I do that, let's go to npm start. And this may not be a Node version problem at all, but I don't think it would hurt to go ahead and install nvm really quick. They have a cool script to do these things. And oh, that's not gonna, whoops. I have to run this to get real time. And that was not what it was supposed to do. All right, so we do have nvm installed now, so we're cool. Node can be done global npm as well. I know how those feel. I just need the answer. Got to drink that Docker Kool-Aid. Yes. So we could have used Docker from the beginning, and I wanted to use Docker from the beginning, but I didn't want to confuse you when we actually got to the build portion. We're not even we haven't even built the pipeline yet, but we're about to. We're almost there to the pipeline. But I think this will be easier seen right now, at least. I think it will be easier seen like this. So we have nvm, and then we can just do nvm install. What's the current LTS? 12.13.0. So this is going to install a new version of Node for me. It's not compatible with the npm. Ah, man. Delete prefix and use. Oh, man. Okay, is this a problem? Ooh, npm delete prefix. I don't want to delete the prefix. npm use. I don't know. I don't know if this is okay. If anyone knows if this is okay or not, is this gonna mess up everything else? Or will I have to like resource that prefix file or something? Really odd. Not compatible with npm config preset option. I'm gonna do it anyway. Because I YOLO stuff. I just YOLO it. All right, now using Node, it says npm. All right, I'm going for it. Yeah, I know it's about to upset what you told me to do, but I'm gonna. So node -- version. We're not afraid over here. We'll do whatever's necessary. All right, node -- version, npm -- version. All right, and we're still using the right npm version. But this probably has to do with the unset SAS stuff. So now if I reset, can I do something like oh, did it delete that file? Did we move the file somewhere? Is that not there anymore? Hold on. LL. Whoa. That's cool. So it actually, when we unset, it actually removed it. So let me actually, is it still here? So still here with the errors in it. And let me see. I'm just running off of fields right now. Let me see if that works. And we can definitely check the debug log. So there's a debug log that happens in here, and you can do a couple things. So I don't know if we talked about how to like parse logs, but there's some things like tail. So if I want to see this debug log is, I can take a look at it, but it can get pretty big. It's not too big right now, but I can look at it, and it's just going to give me a lot of what we have here. But if I want to look at the latest stuff here, I can tail it if I'd like, and I can do that. I can take a look at it. So looking at the log here, that's one emitter. And so I think this one actually, I think what we're running into now is a problem with the is now with the node modules being unset. I think if I do another npm install though, it might throw them into a different location, or it's gonna give me the access denied error again. Let's check your actually this might actually work, but all right, distributions. This is the recommended way. This is to add the right repo. That or a snap. All right, this is whack. This is super whack. Hold on, I thought this was gonna be easier. I'm trying to think if we should abandon this right now. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do something. Node.js. Let's see if we can get a quick Hello World app out here. Oh, no, I don't want to do it myself. I want it from GitHub right now because I don't want to do. I want to grab someone's app. I just wanted something. The reason I was choosing Node.js, I kind of wanted something that runs as an actual application. I didn't want to just use like see, this is just an Next.js. Hello World Express. And this person does not have. Let's try this really quick. I don't want to see because it doesn't look like this has a lot, but before I do something else, let's see. Hello World Node Express. npm, what is it, run app.js, I think that's it. Missing script. Let's take a look at the, oh man, how can I run this? What can I do? Node. I think I just run node. Okay, well, it looks like somebody said that. All right, cool. So that was super whack, but it looks like it's running. Let's see if it actually works. Let's grab the IP address. So this is the public IP if anyone wants to hit my server. Hopefully you guys don't take it down because it is a micro, but I'll paste it anyway. You can hit that. Let's see if it serves. Oh, actually, it's not going to serve. Why is it not going to serve? What do we know? Actually, you're going to need to add 3000 after it because that's the port it's running on. And it's not going to serve. Why is it not going to serve? What do we learn from our... Actually, let me edit what we have down here. Can I delete a message? I can't delete a message, but I can fix it. This is going to be the URL that you go to, and awesome. Someone let us know. It's the security group. We allowed what did we allow? 8080 or something because that's what the other app was going to run on. Let's go ahead and modify. Actually, this doesn't change. If this just says hello world, it doesn't change what we were going to do anyway. So let's change this to 3000 because that's the port that this application is running on. And you can see here it's running on 3000. And now when we try to hit it, we get a hello world. This is great. So our application is running, and you know it's a great app. It's making our company tons of money. But every time we need to make some changes to it, we have to do a bunch to do that. So let's take a look at the actual code. It should be down now. It's actually not running right now because I exited out of that task. But let's take a look at what this looks like. So let's take a look at this app.js. And all it has here is an express thing, and it just returns hello world. Let's say we don't like the world. Actually, let's say what we want to do so right now it's interesting because I'm modifying this code. I'm modifying this code on the server itself, but generally that's not something you want to do. You don't want to, when you want to make changes, you don't want to log into the server itself and make changes. But you can see here, if I change it to hello, I don't know, change W to M. I don't know why I would want to do that. But if I run it and you hit the same URL again, it should be updated. But cool. Very simple. I updated the app, but how do you do that? You know, in the normal way, in the normal development workflow. So what I'm going to first do is, just because I want to have it, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put this in GitHub actually. So I'm going to make a Git repo here. So I'm going to get. Looks like it's already a good thing here. I'm going to remove that, and I could just change the config, but I'm going to remove it. We're going to make a Git repo because this is our application. Whoops. -rf, and I'm going to go ahead and get in it here. Whoa. Man, I cannot type right now. Status. And I'm going to add everything, and I'm going to commit and say, this is my app. First commit. And I'm gonna go ahead, and after that happened, whoops. All right, so added all that stuff, and if I do another git status, oh man, I'm struggling. Git status, there we go. So, okay, so clean tree. Let's go ahead into GitHub and let's make a repo for this really quick and show you how, I wanna show you how this whole workflow is gonna go. We're in GitHub. We're gonna make a repository. And we're gonna call this CI hello dash world. My dog is like tackling me right now. CI hello world, and this is a Node.js hello world app. Public, anyone can get to it. Create repository. And I'm going to get remote add. And all right, so what we've done here now is, oh no, there's a break. So again, I think this happened last time. I need to remove this extension. So basically every time I push to GitHub with this, it sucks. With this, what is this called? With this terminal, I'm using Hyperterm. It is supposed to shoot off a rocket to let me know I did it successfully. And you can see here that caused some problems because this is just JavaScript. But no biggie. We'll get logged right back into the server. And yeah, it was just an extension. There's a couple of them. That was supposed to be like the SpaceX like heavy Falcon or something like that. There's some smaller rockets that work a little bit better. I should remove that so that doesn't happen next time. Yes, the rocket is what caused it to crash. And actually, we're gonna start being good DevOps engineers. We're gonna fix this problem as soon as it happens. Oh no, I'm already on the server, so never mind. No, we're not. And let's see if that pushed. I don't know if it actually pushed or not. It should have pushed. Cool, it pushed. It's here. It looks like there's some security vulnerabilities, but ignore that. All of our code is here. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm actually gonna clone this locally on my computer, so that I'm not modifying it on the server. So we're gonna go here. Let's go to documents. Let's make a directory called hello world express. Actually, no, I'm just gonna clone it because it's gonna make a directory. See what it calls it. All right, so we clone the CI hello world, and so this is the code that we're talking about. And there aren't any tests here. Darn it. That's why I wanted to use the other one, because there's some tests. So before I hop into that, let's actually take a look at the code that we were trying to get running over here before. Oops, cd ubuntu cd npm website cd nodejs.org. So nodejs.org actually has a ton of tests in it. So if I run an npm test, it can be for Node and JavaScript. There are a lot of things. There are things like Mocha. There are things like Jest. There are a bunch of things. So that's for React, but there are a lot of things that can help you test your code that you have to write yourself. And I'll show you what a test file looks like. But once those things are set up and once you have them organized, you can run a command like npm test, and it'll go through and it will run tests against your code, and you'll get some output shortly, and you'll see what that has here. And that's going to be the only thing that's differing from what we have now and from what's here. Is that our new code base doesn't have any tests, but no big deal. Just want to show you that, like, when we talk about running those tests, that is essentially what we're doing, is running something like npm tests and allowing it to go ahead and run these things. Looks like it might not finish because of we'll see. We'll let that run. No big deal. It's running on our server. But we are developers now, and we have our code here. We joined the team, and we have our Hello World app, and our first task as a Node.js developer is to go in and change it from Hello World to hello, to change it to goodbye, people. So one app says hello, and it says hello world, and the other one says goodbye, people. And this was gonna, it's the best part of the app. It's the new latest and greatest feature that you've had the opportunity to implement, and you go through and you develop your application and you save it, and everything's all great. Now, what would you have to do to get this code onto your server? You can do two things. You used to have to do something like, now I'd have to use SCP or an FTP server, and I have to take my code and I'd have to copy it onto my machine, make sure it's in the right directory, and then I'd have to, spin down the app and spin it back up. All great. Not too hard if it's one server, pretty difficult if it's a bunch of different servers that you have to deploy your application to. Also, you get no, this is a very simple app, but if you had a much more complicated application than this, you get no, you have no belief that this is great. You have no, I don't know, you have nothing to lean on. There were no tests written for this. There's nothing here. There's no processes here. You kind of just have to do it willy-nilly, and you have to memorize how to deploy this. So you may not actually know how to log into an AWS server, and you might have to go find the documentation to log in this AWS server and get it to where it needs to be and know which folder it's supposed to go into, and all those rules, all those processes, those things suck. This is what you would use something like Circle for. So now, finally, we're going to hop into Circle and we're going to create a brand new project. So you sign up with Circle. And once you sign up with Circle, go to app. once you sign up with Circle, you get a bunch of options. So what you can do is you can take a look at projects here. You can add a new project, and once you, because I signed up with my GitHub account, and once you make that connection, it gives you some access to the things that you have here. So you can see here, this is the repository that we just created, this CI Hello World repository. Now what we got to do here is set up the project. So we're going to set it up. It's going to give us some options here. We're going to say, hey, what's the operating system this is running on? What kind of project is this? So we know how to set things up, and we're going to take that. So the first thing is operating system is Linux. And so that's what we're building this on. That is the target operating system. So we're going to use Linux. What language are you going to use? So I could choose any of these, but it already selected, it already knows what this is. It can see the project already, and it knows it's a Node app. So it highlights it, and we can say, hey, that's a Node app. So that's what we're going to be using here. And then there's next steps here. So this allows you to do some other things and kind of gets you set up if this is your first time. So we're going to open up the documentation page to the side, just so when we're ready to get to it, but it lets us know, hey, you're almost there. All you need to do is set up a configuration file, commit it, and turn on the listeners in CircleCI so it can test your commits. I want to skip ahead, jump into the documentation, and you can check it out there. But all it wants us to do is create a folder named CircleCI and add a file, config.yaml. The file path is .circleci/config.yaml. Let's go ahead and do this. You know, it's our first time setting things up. Let's go ahead and do that. So it says, first thing, create a folder named .circleci. So we could do that manually right here and just, you know, do a .circleci. But again, we want to do things as manual as possible here just to get in the practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our terminal right here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And we're going to make our directory .circleci. So how do you make a directory in Linux? Make dir, mkdir is how you do that. And we're going to say make dir .circleci. And if we do an ls or an ll or whatever you want to do, you can see here, this folder is created here. And if you're not sure and you like the visuals better of a directory tree like this, you can see here that now I have a directory called .circleci. And you can actually see here that it created a folder with the CircleCI logo. Again, this is a popular framework. It's a popular tool, and the icons are built and set for this, which is fun. All right, so now we need to add a file called config.yaml inside of that directory. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's go ahead and do it with Linux again because it's great. So from right here, I could I could change directory into that CircleCI directory, and go ahead and create that, but I can also create it from here. So how do we create an empty file? With the touch command that creates an empty file at a location which you provide. So .circleci, because it needs to go in that directory, and it needs to be called config.yaml. And as soon as I hit enter here, I can do an ls on .circleci, and I can see there's a config.yaml in there. And I can also see right here that now there is a config.yaml here, and it's completely empty here. So great. We've completed the first step, which, yeah, we completed the first step here. So populate the YAML config with the contents of the sample YAML shown below. You don't have to do this step, but they give you the configuration out of the box for your language of choice or your project, settings of choice. This makes it pretty nice. So you don't have to know a bunch of stuff to start. So I'm gonna copy this to the clipboard, and let's go ahead and paste it in because it says populated. And now we can take a look at how similar this looks to what I did. And now let's talk through what we have here. All right. So we can delete all this extra cruft so that we're not super confused, more confused than we already are. But we've got our jobs here. And our jobs, our job is build here. Like this is gonna be our only job here. And it's a Docker build. And it's using this image. So this is very similar to the one that we looked at. It's using a Node 7.10 image. I'm not sure why, but sure, Node 7.10 by default. And then it lets me know that my working directory is repo, home/repo. We could change that to whatever we wanted. But this is just a base config here. And so basically what this does is this is going to, I believe this is by default, is going to set this up to have a Node app run directly inside of a Node container with no extra work. I actually think this is going to work with no extra work. So steps are going to be the checkout. So remember, there's a special step that goes ahead and downloads our code base. Restores cache. Don't worry about the cache restore. Here, this is something that is enabled by the containers that that CircleCI can do. It can basically cache steps for you so that it doesn't have to redo all that stuff, because some of these steps may take a long time, and it can cache those steps for you. And it does some stuff here to make sure that there were no changes to like the package JSON. But ignore that. It's just caching, making sure you have a cache and reusing a cache if you already have one. Then it's doing a yarn install. So they're using yarn instead of npm here. Save cache. So making sure that the cache is saved now, and then it runs a test. So it runs a yarn test. There may not be any test there, but we're gonna take this and we're gonna just have that here, and we're gonna read the rest of what it has to us, or what it gives to us. All right, so update the sample.yaml to reflect your project's configurations. Now we don't have any configurations really, so I'm going to leave this as is for now, and we'll mess around with it in a second. Push this change up to GitHub. So let's go ahead, push this change up to GitHub. How do we do that? Again, here's what's the process with Git. Git is following your files. So let's do it. This is a Git. This is a Git repo. You run a Git status to know what's going on. So this work, like try to memorize this workflow and like the order of things. I don't necessarily remember the order in which I'm doing them. Remember kind of what they do and kind of the high level workflow of Git. So one, it's tracking a bunch of files. We downloaded a bunch of files from Git, and then we modified some files. And so a Git status will give us the information about what was modified. So it looks like this file was modified. So app.js was modified. And then we have this .circleci directory, which is untracked. Why is that untracked? It's untracked because this isn't a part of the original repo. This is a directory that I created. So we have to tell Git now which files to track. So we're gonna git add .circle. And if I do another git status to see what's going on, git status is your friend, I can see here that this is now, like it's now following this, it's now tracking this, but this has some changes, but it's not tracked. So I do want to push those as well. So I'm gonna git add app.js. All right, so now if I do another git status, everything's green here. I then have to, after I make sure that they're tracked, I have to tell Git like, hey, I'm ready to save this. I'm ready to save this stuff. Like there's a point in time in which I want to save this stuff. I want you to kind of commit to memory what I have here, and I'll do git commit added circle config. You can type whatever you want here. Added circle config and modified app.js. All right, it lets us know that 2 files were changed, and it lets us know what happened. So it creates this point in time reference to the code base, and to push it to GitHub, I just go ahead and do a git push. Mastermind.io. And it's gonna go ahead and push up to GitHub. So it told us to push to GitHub, and we pushed, and let's see if the webhook started working. Let's see what happens now. Oh, it actually did it by itself. So it's gonna go ahead and it's gonna run this workflow. It's not gonna do anything. It's actually built, it's built behind something. It's running now. You can see here, it's right now, it's just a Linux terminal, nothing special. We saw what a Docker pool looks like. Why is it pulling a Docker container? Remember, it's using a Docker container to build. It's pulling this image. So it's pulling down this image. And once that's done, it should go through and it should run some other stuff. But checked out my code, that worked. Restored cache, and then yarn test. It ran yarn test and it failed because we are not using any tests. We don't have any tests currently set up here. So yarn test did not work. It did not. It failed, and our build will stop there. So whatever we had, any steps we had after that would not go on, and that failed. So your goal would now be to modify this to work with your applications and to make it work. Let's see if I can make this work in any way. What happened here? This was the I guess it ran out of memory. It couldn't even run my npm test because it ran out of memory. This is for the old application that we're gonna run. So what we can do here is you could actually do some cool stuff like this instead. So let's say we know we want this to be a Docker container. And basically it's building a Docker container right here anyway. And so what's the best, what can we do here? Maybe we no longer want to do this. Everything in here, this is just a Linux, these are just Linux commands, just so you're not confused. Like some of these are just Linux commands. So we could do something like, let's actually figure out how to use a Node.js container really cool. So let's go to hub.docker.com. And while we're finding this, I'm going to tell you a few more things you can do with Circle or with build tools. So actually first, let's talk about that first. So this built and it tried to run, and take a look at what it says here. It's trying to build master. I could take a new branch, and I could try to push that. And we'll try to build that branch as well. By default, it'll build any branch that I push, but I can, and let's go back to the config. Wonder if it's better to use, what time is it? Let's see. Let's look at Circle branch. That was dumb. Should have did like CircleCI. So what you can do is you can actually set up, you have a lot of functionality here where you can configure this to only build on certain branches if you want, to exclude certain branches. So right now, we're on the master branch, and I can say, hey, when this gets built, if it is I can say, if this is a master branch or production branch or staging branch, run this workflow, and I can set up some jobs, I can set up some steps here, and it will run the exact workflow that I gave to it. And then I can have another set of workflows. I can say, but if the branch is any of these things, or if it's tagged any of these things, run these. So you have some variability there to be able to set up these pipelines. And so that's why there's pipelines with an S. It's not even just different applications. Each individual service or application can have its own set of pipelines. So this Hello World app, again, depending on what we tag it, depending on what branch we give it, we can send it off. We can make it do certain things. We can make it go to maybe if when we go to the development servers, maybe we don't run tests at all. Now that's not something you should actually do, but maybe you don't run tests at all. And actually I could remove this test thing and this would actually pass. It should pass actually. It wouldn't give you anything, but let's do this. Just so you can see what a succeeded build looks like. And you can see it pushed to master. And let's take a look. That one failed, but if we refresh this page, you should see it pick up a second build. And it's queued. It's probably queued because either something's running right now or, yeah, sometimes they take a little while to get your stuff running. But now the second build is running, and you can see it's going through, and I can follow the history of my builds. Install. All right, cool. So that's a completed build. There was nothing in this. There was nothing in this workflow that caused it to fail. So it was a successful build. So you can see here that the build tool doesn't really care about what you're doing. It doesn't care about what the steps are. Again, it's up to you to set up that process and to figure out what's important to you. This build is not actually doing anything. Like the build actually is doing. So I'm doing some continuous integration here, I guess, kinda, but like not really. It's kind of just downloading container and checking out my code. It's just checking out my code here and running a yarn install to install making sure all of my dependencies get installed, and that's about it. And then it finishes, and it gives me a success. So that's enough to clear this gate. It doesn't need to make sure the application's working or anything like that. It only does what you tell it to do. And so I'm trying to think of some cool ways we can build into that, but I actually think the best use of our time is actually to switch back to our Stream Hugo site. And this actually passed. Oh, Stream Hugo site was actually what we did. I actually did this on a stream a long time ago. But the gospel. The gospel is the main website. It failed. I was running this a little bit earlier just to kind of, I was like, I put this in here a while ago. Let me see if it works. Let's fix that. And then you can see a whole pipeline work since nothing else we tried tonight worked. I think this will work. First, let's do this. Let's take a look at the code base here and let's get out of here. I don't care about this anymore. I gotta make sure to shut down that server. /documents. All right, so I'm in here. Let's open up some VS Code. Again, this is my application, and all I did was basically the same thing you've seen me do so far. You've seen me set up the in Circle. You see me go ahead and set up the project that I want to set up. What happened here? And then you saw me do that, and then you also saw me copy and paste the YAML into a file, create those files, create the directory. I did the same thing here. This is not anything special. Let me see if this works. Let me restart the GNOME or the display drivers here. All right, everything's going bad. VS Code's not doing anything, but that's fine. We always have Vim. We do have Vim for this, but that's really annoying, like really annoying. I don't know why everything's going wrong tonight. All right, so let's see here. Public, and this only sucks because you can't see the hidden directories. How do you? I don't know in Nerd Tree how to see the hidden directories, but that's fine. You don't need to see them. I'll just actually Vim them. So let's take a look at this CircleConfig again. Very simple thing again, a bunch of steps. We're just updating, we're installing Git here, we're checking out our code, doing, yeah, Food Barbecue for sure. Installing some Git submodules, installing the AWS CLI, and building Hugo, and we're actually deploying this to AWS. So this is actually the full deploy. And so let's check out here what happens here. Nerd Tree, hidden directories, I think it's Shift I. Let's check that out. Actually, I didn't need to do that. Vim. I just wanted to give you guys the same. Thank you. Perfect. Everyone, man, you guys are super helpful. It's just easier to look at it like this because I think it's very similar to the feel of VS Code. But it's actually going to deploy to AWS, and I think this is the step that's failing now, and I'll show you why this part is failing. But let's go ahead and make a change really quick. Oh man, Git status. So I didn't change anything. So let's change something. Let's actually change something on the site itself. So I'm gonna go to content. Let's go to the main page. I know I have some typos in here. Let's see if I can find one. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna add another dot right here in the yup section. And I'm doing this the long way. I could have just used the F command. I'm gonna add extra dot. Actually, extra dot. And I'm gonna change it to capital Y so you can actually see what happened. And let's see. Let's save that. Very simple change. And if I do a git status, remember, let's run through this process again. I made some changes. I have to tell Git that I want it to save those things. So git add this, and then commit -m, removed some ellipses. Now I have no idea how to spell ellipses, but I'm gonna just, yeah, sure. Spelling's not my forte, as you can see. Remove some ellipses, whatever. And then we're gonna push this. And so mastermind. And since this is a longer build, we'll take a look and we'll watch this run. Oh no. Why am I doing this to myself? See, this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't fix problems when they arise immediately. Hyper plugins. I'm removing this plugin right now. It is this Git Falcon 9. Actually, but you know what? I actually think this is a better rule. Is it Git Rocket? I think this is it. I think it's a better one that actually does work. So let that load. We will close this one. It should have pushed the code, but you can see here it's building that. So it did actually push the code, even though it died on us. I am using the default GNOME shell. This is the default GNOME shell, and I haven't upgraded this to GNOME 19.10 yet. But you can see here, it ran all of our steps here, and the deploy to AWS failed. Why? Because it couldn't locate some credentials. Why couldn't it locate some credentials? That's because I never set up the credentials in Circle. So things like when you deploy in the cloud environments, these are great because you can basically give these some credentials. You can pass in some credentials here, and it will use those credentials to be able to log in and to authenticate with AWS and do that. So I actually do have a user in here that we set up a long time ago for Circle, but I don't have those keys, so I need to generate some new keys. So let's do that real quick. I'm not going to show you these keys. Create access key. How will I do this? Main. I'll make sure you look at desktop view. I will move this off of desktop view. I don't know what's behind here. Oh yeah, it's fine. I'll move this off of desktop view. I will put in I will download this. Save the file. Actually, let me move this back first. Actually, I'm gonna leave that up. I need a better way to do these secrets. But I believe in Circle, all you have to do is set up some environment variables. So let's go back to main. And in here, escape that as well. Let's go this and display settings so it resizes. There we go. What you can do here is you can set up some environment variables. So we know that environment variables, this is just a little system that runs, and you can set up an environment variable, some environment variables here when this runs. And we're gonna set up some environment variables here. So CircleCI, AWS. I can't remember what the things are. Oh yeah, here. So you're basically gonna set up an access key ID and an AWS secret key. And I'm basically gonna set this up as this, and I'm gonna paste it in. So this is the same, these are the same credentials that you were using when you were looking at your config, when you did the AWS configure command, or we looked at our credentials file. This is the same things that we're gonna be using, and this is what I'm going to paste in here. But again, I'm gonna get off of here only because my CircleCI user has more access than it should have. I don't want anyone deploying a bunch of stuff on. Let's copy that and paste it in here. Variable, add another variable, which is AWS secret key with no space. And I will add the value for that, and I'll leave that. I could just have done it really fast and hope none of you were able to pause it or something. To copy, but I know people do some wild things, and I don't want to have a $400 AWS bill. Add variable. All right, so I'll pull this back over. Let's go back to main. Let's move this back over one last time. All right, so now you can see here, you can't see the values, but I set some environment variables purely for this project right here. And so every time it runs, it should use these variables. So I actually think I can rerun this workflow. So what you can do from a failed workflow, you can actually rerun it. I'm just gonna click rerun. You can either rerun it from where it died at, or you can rerun it from the beginning. I think by default, it reruns it from the beginning. There are some ways to do this securely. So context is a way you can do this securely and separate your repos and make sure that you don't give AWS too much information. Or you can make sure that you can actually use GitHub. You can actually use GitHub, like the groups and things in GitHub. You can use that to manage the users that are allowed to deploy to each individual environment, which is pretty cool as well. You can do that through these contexts here. A lot of different stuff. You have a lot of tools at your disposal here, but we can see, hopefully this works. We'll let that run. Let's see. Using the default GNOME shell. No, I'm not. Hit a terminal. I'm using Pop OS from System 76 by default. It's got a little bit of theming on it. I've changed. I'll actually tell you exactly what shell I'm using. I think I'm using appearance. I'm using the Ant Nebula GNOME shell and GTK 3 theme. So if anyone is trying to really replicate what I have here, I'm using Ant Nebula. I get all of my stuff off of gnomelook.org. So gnome-look.org is where I go to get all of my theming stuff. Yeah. So what happened here? It deployed to AWS and actually happened successfully. You can see here, it actually uploaded all this stuff to my S3 buckets. Let's take a look at S3. And if you take a look at S3, this might actually broke my site, but I didn't even make sure all this was good. But S3, yes, and Nebula can work on stock Ubuntu. Yep, absolutely. So I think I'll put this in academy.mastermind.io. And actually, you can see here, what's today's date? The 21st at 10:04. We're right at that time. It looks like all these files were actually updated just now. So our pipeline looks like it worked fine. I am running CloudFront. So if we go to try to see the changes, it won't. We shouldn't see the changes, actually. We changed this to a capital Y right here, and we like remove some dots, remove some ellipses. It's not showing because we're running through CloudFront. We are getting a cache page, and that is because that is exactly what CloudFront does. So we should be hitting that. That's because I did it from the thing, but get this hit from CloudFront. It's a cache response from the browser. So we have to clear that cache. How do you clear the cache in CloudFront? Yep, I'm giving you a lot here. You're learning all about all the AWS stuff you could do. You're learning about a full scope of things. So we pushed this is a common problem. This is a problem that we run into on my project now. You update something on the site, but you can't see it immediately because of CloudFront. CloudFront caches. CloudFront has a timeout. What do you do if you want to see it immediately? You do this in validation. I'll just do the whole site. Actually, I don't even know if I'll just /star. And that'll invalidate everything. I'll let that run, takes a minute or so. And then I should be able to see my updates. And I'll open up a new private window just to be sure. And I should wait till it's done, but it's fine. And I'll go to academy.mastermind.io. And then whatever endpoint I'm hitting didn't serve yet, because I'm getting busy. And actually, you know what's funny? This might not even be coming out of this bucket. I might have pushed everything to the wrong bucket. Oh man, that'll be another thing. Where is this stuff coming from? Nope, it's coming out of the Bootcamp bucket. So, this is great. This is excellent. So now here's what we're gonna do. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna modify, really quickly, we're gonna modify what we have here. So this is our app.js. Let's modify our circle config again. CD documents, the gospel. Let's see if VS Code works this time. All right, VS Code works again. All I need to do to change where I'm pushing to is here. So I'm actually using a different bucket for my backend, and not that one. So let's just confirm. Yeah, I'm using bootcamp.mastermind.io. So let's change that. So we've discovered an error in our process, and now we need to resolve that problem. Bootcamp.mastermind.io. So now what do? We check good status. We made some changes. A little shortcut here. You can skip the add step by adding a -a, and that will add everything that needs to be added. And actually don't need to do that. And then just give it a message saying fixed fixed upload bucket, or fixed deploy bucket. Hit commit. All right, and then you just git push it. And what do we get here? That should go. Let's go ahead and watch our CI/CD tool. So let's watch it grab that information. Let's watch it run through those processes automatically. Again, this is an automated process. It runs through these automatically. I don't do anything else. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And if I set it up properly, it gives me that confidence that everything is run properly. There aren't any tests in here, but it goes through to make sure that things can build properly, make sure my changes that I made have not affected the way that this code runs. Hopefully, it helps give you that confidence that what you've done is running. So again, that first step, how do I know my code still works? It goes through and it does that step. It builds it for you. Make sure that code still works. 2, how do people actually use my code, or how do they get to my code? And it develops those artifacts for me. So this itself, what is this building? Is this building a container? This is not building a container. It's building the Hugo artifact file. So it's building the public directory. It's building the HTML files that I need. And then it's continuously deploying. So we CI, we CD, and now we're CDing again. And so, how do I update my site? How do I get it out to the world? And we are deploying, and that's what the deploy step down here is doing. So we're doing all 3 parts of the CI, CD process here. And then you can see here, if we refresh again, I might need to do another cache clear, which I think I do need to do. I might be experiencing some browser caching. Let's go ahead and run another clear. Behaviors, validations. Copy it. Invalidate. This one. New private window. And you can see here, I have less dots and I have a capital Y here. And so just like that, I made an update to my site automatically. So every time now I'm set up, and that's great. Now I'm set up that whenever anyone notices any changes, you can go ahead and let me know, and I can easily, or any changes I want to make. If I want to say, again, even the same way, if I want to add in now a new section. So before, this is what would have to happen. Before, I would have to do something like this to update my site. I would have to make a change. So in here, I may say, hey, better way to Bootcamp. I want more of these, and I want this to be in all caps. And I want to say the best way to Bootcamp. And I would make that change here, and I would say, all right, great. Now, to push this, what do I have to do? I would have to install Hugo here, and then I would have to do a Hugo build, or just Hugo, and I would have to build up some files. And that would take a couple seconds. Not really. Hugo's really fast. This site's really small. I would run, actually, let me just install it really quick. I should install Hugo really quick. I'll save this. I'm not actually gonna push any of this, but I'm gonna save it as soon as this is done. So file saved, I would do Hugo. And so Hugo goes and does this thing, and again, that's really fast, and it builds everything, and it puts everything in this public folder right here. And then so if I cd into this public folder, it's actually just a bunch of web files and the next HTML and a bunch of stuff. So statically generates my site. Then I would have to go, hey, what's the name of my bucket? S3LS. And I would have to go, all right, AWS S3 sync everything that's right here with bootcamp.mastermind.io. Actually, it would have to be S3:// and I would have to run that. So every time I want to update my site, I have to run all those commands. Now, that's not incredibly difficult, but what if my site was on some servers, and it was, what if my site was on 4 different servers, and what if my code base was a lot larger? What if I was running an application that wasn't as fast as Hugo, and I needed like 4 or 5 steps to be able to do that? You saw how long it took for me to do that npm install. What if I had to do an npm install every time? What if I had to do a lot of steps, and then actually deploy that out to every server? It's very time consuming, and it sucks a lot. And again, this is a small build process, but there are people's build processes that take all day to build their entire application, hours to build their entire application. So you don't really have to worry about that. You want to be able to use your computer's resources for other things, so you can pass that off again to the CI/CD tool. And so it's doing all this for me. I set that up, and it's doing all those things for me. And that's all a CI/CD tool does. That's all CI/CD is, really. It is automating, using one of these special tools to automate your processes. Again, the way that you build code, the way that you test code, the way that you check for vulnerabilities, all that stuff. It's a way for you to put those into a pipeline, basically script these things out, put them into a process. You're basically codifying a process here. You're saying, I just want you to, hey, run through and do all these different things for me. And you can't move on to the next step unless you complete the step before it. So it ensures that things are being done correctly. It ensures that things are working. So you might find though that the builds don't always fail because of something that you did wrong. So it's good to go into the logs and make sure you understand how to read through what you're looking at. Sometimes the errors have to do with Circle at the time, and these are computers just like anything else. Sometimes computers have hiccups, so you might run into a problem there. Sometimes it may be with a package. Sometimes a package may change and no longer be available. I've had that happen to me before. A specific Python package our build was using was no longer available or had moved, or so the mirrors were gone or something like that, and the builds were failing for our main application. We couldn't figure out why they were failing, and it was because a package was removed and it could not solve it said, hey, go ahead and install this package, but because that package wasn't available, it went ahead and it killed the builds for us to let us know that something's wrong here. The build is not as you intended it. This process cannot run in the same way that you defined it for me. So the same way we've been learning infrastructure as code, the same way we've been learning how to define that, declaring what we want to happen. These CI pipelines can be the same way with things like Circle, with things like Travis. There is a lot more variability in this. You can really build out what these pipelines do. They can do tons and tons of things. There's a lot of logic in there. So I can build, only on a specific branch, only on a specific tag. I can put some logic in there, because you can write kind of code in here, like some bash. You can write in your you can determine, I can write some code in here. So even if I don't want to use Circle to define those things, I can write some code in here that checks, if it's master branch or not. So you can actually see here, I actually did this. I didn't even know I did this. Maybe I just copied this, but I actually wrote code here to do exactly what Circle will do for you. So basically this says, hey, if the Circle branch you're on is master, which we are on, then go ahead and run this. So build it and push it and sync it with this bucket. But if not, go ahead and run. This is not a master branch, so this is only a dry run. So let's actually see what that looks like. So I made some changes here, and I'm gonna make a new branch. So I'm gonna do git checkout -b. This is how you make a new branch, and I'm gonna call it example branch. And so now I have a new branch, and if I do get status, it says, it lets me know I'm on an example branch. I'm no longer on the master branch. And if you're in VS Code, you can see here on the bottom left, I'm on the example branch. And if I do, let me add everything. So I'll do a -am, and I'll say new branch, new updates. It's a bad, something you shouldn't do. I keep forgetting the word commit. That's a bad message, but whatever. I did that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this up. And because I made a new branch, I've got to set a new upstream for this branch. And mastermind. And that'll push. And let's take a look at what happens when we push. So actually in GitHub, you've never seen what pushing a new branch looks like. Let's go back to the gospel over here. Repository. It says I push a new branch, but right here I'm looking at all the code for master, and now that I push a new branch, I can switch to example branch, and now it shows me all the code for this branch. And so that's what a branch is. It's a new branch of code. You're branching off from the original code, and you're making a new branch that you can work on. What you can do later down the line is do work on this branch and then merge it back into master. So it's a very cool way of following changes within a code base. But if we look at Circle, we can see here example branch it built. So it ran through all these processes. Let's take a look at what deploy to AWS did. Normally, if the branch was master, it would go ahead and it would sync things. And if we look at the other deploy, you can see all the syncing files, and you can see that happen. But it's not master branch. The branch is actually example branch. So I said echo, not master branch, dry run only. So what does it do? It echoes, not master branch, dry run only. So that just shows you how you can, because of the way it's set up, you can easily script out logic in here. You can use these build tools to do a lot. You can extend them however you want, honestly, because of this. You'll see some cool stuff with Jenkins. Jenkins, you can write all these groovy templates and stuff and do a lot of cool stuff. It's got all these plugins, so you can do some wild things with Jenkins that you probably, I don't necessarily think you should do in a build pipeline, but this is what a build pipeline does. And these are kind of the options you have. But basically, again, it's all these CI/CD tools all the CI/CD pipeline is a way to codify your processes and the way that you develop code and get it from a state that is in development into either an artifact or into a state of deployment. And yeah, it's not much different than that. I'm sorry that we couldn't get the Node.js app working. That just shows you what happens when you that really shows you what kind of happens when you on the job, with the things you might run into. That was very reminiscent of, oh yeah, I know how to change this thing. Like, it'll work. Like, I'll just update it. Like, no big deal. And then you run into it, and it turns into a 2 or 3 day ordeal because a lot of crap happened that you weren't expecting. But yeah, that's par for the course. I'm glad we were able to kind of run through that and do a little bit of troubleshooting and have a little fun here. So I know we're a little all over the place tonight with this. Hopefully you understood, you got the gist of what CI, CD, CD means, and kind of what these pipelines look like. Hopefully you get a chance to see much larger pipelines. We will absolutely be building bigger and bigger pipelines, as we stream more, as we go through more examples. But hopefully, you dipped your toe in the water here, and you came out pretty good on the other side. Yeah, so do we have any questions? Because I know we're way over time, but do we have any questions tonight? I've been kind of ignoring the chat here. Oh yeah, thank you, Foo Barbecue for the nerd tree thing there. That's good. I was like adding. I never remember. So I remember all the Vim commands, and I never remember all the commands and shortcuts for the tools that I use inside of Vim, which is terrible. Yeah. Try using GNOME shell. Are you using the default? Yes, I am. All right, cool. Oh, the top side start bar. For GNOME, this is the default GNOME. I don't think I'm doing anything weird with GNOME. The only thing that I'm doing weird with, not weird with GNOME, but extra with GNOME is the -doc plugin, so that this displays, so it's not over here, and I don't have to hit the thing here to see it. But that's about it. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for sticking around to the end of that. I know that was a lot. I know we went through a lot there. We spent most of the time not talking about CI/CD at all. But hopefully you got something out of that. Reach out to me if you have any questions that are deeper about that. We will be doing more about CI/CD in the coming weeks, setting up larger pipelines, and setting up some cool things with that. But again, thank you all. What do we have on Wednesday? We are going to be hopping on with some monitoring, which, yes, we are. I actually think we're going to be going with Nagios instead of Modit, because Nagios is a little more widespread. But I might get a lot of that set up beforehand for us so that we can hop in. I think we'll I don't think the goal of this is for you to know how to set up Nagios and set up these tools. So I might preset them up and just show you how you can use them to get information, how you can use them to debug, use them to find out exactly what the state of your applications are and like what's going on within them. Because I think that's more valuable than actually learning how to set those tools up, because there are a bunch of them and you'll probably not be using any of the ones that we choose. No matter what we choose, you'll probably not be using those wherever you go. So cool. Sounds good. Hope to see everyone Wednesday. Everyone have a good night. I am going to hop off, and I got a lot of emails to respond to. So I'll see you all on Wednesday. Have a good night.